Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Leonard McDonald, and just wanted to cover something for you all because I see the word side hustle thrown around a lot, and I really just wanted to kind of zone in on exactly what that means because a lot of times the things that we don't realize is that we actually lock ourselves into a position and into certain results because whether we are using a word correctly or not, for some reason we wind up, kind of falling in line with whatever that thing is. Kind of like, and I've done this myself where I was like, oh, I have a business idea. Let me go get some business cards and put CEO Leonard McDonald on there, and I feel great about it. But in reality, a CEO doesn't make a company money. It's not their role. It's not their job. And so it's funny because a lot of us do that when we first get started. Like being a CEO is like, oh, I want to be a CEO. Like it's kind of glorified. But what a CEO really does is they just run systems. They just create systems. And so what winds up happening is we fall into the role of a CEO without understanding that that's what they do. So we start putting systems together. Like, okay, I need to make this business work. How do I systemize it so that it's something that works for me? Here's the problem with that. There are a few roles to do that make being a CEO efficient and effective. You know, because the CEO runs systems, those systems are supposed to run efficiently by bringing customers in. So if you haven't first perfected how you're bringing customers in and that process and what's actually bringing them in, then you're really focused on making a system that doesn't do that because you haven't started there. You started at the CEO role. And so I said all of that to say, usually when a business starts, like people say, it's a side hustle. And you'll wind up treating your business as a side hustle if that's the way you view it. It's become like a glorified term as well. And the thing is, a lot of you have some amazing ideas and things, but you've been treating it like a side hustle. And then also not really understanding what the role of a side hustle is or the phase of a side hustle is when it comes to a company. And then like what gets you out of that phase and onto the next phase. That means you've outgrown the side hustle phase, which is everyone wants to do. Because if you stay in that side hustle phase, all you're really doing is spending a lot of time and not making a lot of money. Why? Because usually if you have a side hustle, you have a main job. So when you're running this main job that's, requiring 8, 9, 10 hours from you, and now you go from there to putting some hours into the side hustle, that's a lot of time. And you're building the side hustle slowly. It's not really getting there quickly. So what's really funding this side hustle is the main job. So it's almost like they go hand in hand for quite a bit of time before you can break free of this main job and now take this side hustle to a level where it's no longer a side hustle, but it has now become a business. So I just kind of wanted to go over that and kind of give you some thoughts of the stage of a side hustle because it's kind of like a millionaire, To make first I'll say millionaire begins in the mind. You have to have a mindset of a millionaire to become a millionaire. There's a list of people who have won the lottery and become millionaires, and then 2, 3 years later they lost it all. Why? Because they weren't actual millionaires up here, so they weren't able to keep it. They lost it. So in this case, with the millionaire, there's $1 million that makes you a millionaire, and there's $999 million that makes you a millionaire. There's a huge spectrum in between that, though, and that's what it is with the side hustle. Like you can start at this end because that stage is all about getting clients or customers. That's the only thing that matters because you are trying to start a business, but you're not at the business level yet because you don't have the blood of the business pumping regularly, which is clients or customers. So as you start to gain clients or customers, so I say it's between 15 to 20 clients or customers. It kind of depends. If it's clients, that's kind of on a higher level. As a customer, maybe buying something for $5, $10, $15. It's different depending on the level. But if it's clients, 15 to 20 customers, you want to be bringing in at least $4,000 a month. And then at that point, you're kind of getting to a place where you can use that income to replace your main job, and now you can drop your main job or at least start pulling away and focus solely on growing that company now because it has produced enough funds to fund itself and also create some security for you. So I really wanted to cover this side hustle phase and what it takes to go from a side hustle to a business, and with the understanding that the main focus is amassing customers or amassing clients. Because during that side hustle where you're just hustling to get that company running without the use of funds from the main business, because at that point, like it's like you have two jobs because this job supports that job, which is a job because you have to run all over the place and do all sorts of things, and it's just requiring too much of your time. The next phase, however, after you go from side hustle to business, is going from a business to a movement. Now, that is kind of where the CEO hat lies because that's when you've already figured out how to consistently get clients and customers. So what's next? Like, okay, now I need to systemize this process that I know works, right? So now that you're going through the process of systemizing this process and making sure the numbers work for you. The reason that's key is a lot of people like there's like we're not taught business. So when it comes to understanding what it takes to run the business, like that stuff is like stuff we wind up figuring out the hard way if we're even paying attention to it at all. So usually, like I worked with a ton of clients, and usually they don't know how much it costs them to acquire a customer. I'll do another video on that separately because that's a whole thing in and of itself. But the reason why it's important to know how much it costs you to acquire a customer is because how else do you know if you're actually profitable? In the beginning of this year, 2021, I had a program that was $6,000. It sounds like it's profitable, right? Well, when I went back and I looked at everything that I was putting into the program and all the different like surprises that I had for people, it was actually costing me money. Every time I sold it, it was at a loss overall because everything that went into it and also everything that I'm paying others to pour into that program, it didn't even break even. So I had to go back and revamp everything and change the entire process because it just wasn't profitable enough. Now, here's something that I want to share with you that lets you know if you're profitable or shows you how to plan to be profitable, which is a step that I skipped. Like the whole like profits on purpose is a real thing. Like if you're not planning for profits, it's going to be really hard to get them. And so this is how you do that. You got to understand that everything is kind of broken down into these percentages. And so you're looking at 10 to 15% is what it's going to cost you to acquire a customer. So when it comes to if you're using a sales team or if you're running ads or anything along those lines, that's what that 10 to 15% is really going towards. The next thing is 10 to 15% is going to fulfillment. So whatever it is that you're promising to give these people, that 10 to 15% is what's used to actually fulfill on that promise and do what you said you were going to do, whether it's shipping or just setting up something to send it to them automatically, packages, like whatever it is, the fulfillment is, bringing in a coach, that's going to be 10 to 15% taken from whatever it is that you're charging. Then there's 30%, taxes, government, fees, self-explanatory. We don't like it, but it is a thing you have to plan for, right? Then there's another 30% that actually goes towards your profit margin. Now, for the math wizards out there, you're like, wait, 15, 15, that's 30, 30, 60, 39. What's the other 10%? Well, depending on the time of year or the environment, case in point, COVID, like what it costs you to acquire a customer and what it costs you to fulfill will fluctuate. So you have that buffer there because you never want to find yourself in a position where you were expecting something that you didn't get and now you're in a worse off position because it didn't come through. So these are all things put in place so that you can manage everything exactly the way that you want to without any surprises popping up and throwing you off. So that right there overall is what you want to think about when you're putting your thing together, whether you're selling a service or a product. That's the formula that you want to think through when you're thinking about costs. Because if you're charging $100 for something that may cost you $50 or whatever, like understand, okay, from that from that $100, it's going to be about 10 to 15%. So like $10 to $15 is going to go towards customer acquisition, and another 10 to 15% is going to go to fulfillment. So if that costs you $50, like that's $110 right there. So how are you going to be profitable? You didn't even take into account taxes, government fees yet. See? So really wanted to cover those two aspects of it. It's really four phases.